This is gonna be a raw video, so if you want to stay with me and be interested in my personal life about my internship, then I would suggest you to watch this video. I don't know if it's gonna be really valuable, but it's definitely gonna, you're gonna learn more about me in person. I'm just gonna start with the situation now. I'm just graduated last week, so that's why I'm making this video now, that I can tell you the full story, how it happened, what happened, and how I did it. I graduated in the end, but it didn't look like it in the beginning. I've talked a lot about my internship in the safety videos prior in this channel, so it might be nice as well to just tell you the full story. So if you're interested, you can watch this video. Okay, so first of all, what was the internship and why did I do it? It was an internship of 6 months from the end of November to the end of April. Just the 25th of April was my last day and the 27th of November was my first day. And why did I do it? I did this because I had to redo my year in college and university in the Netherlands, because I didn't graduate last year, so I had to do it again. Otherwise, I would have had 10k in study debt that I had to pay back to the government. So I was like, let me just do this internship for 6 months and I'm done. I don't have any debt anymore, so let me just finish this. So that was the main reason why I did it. It's a logistics study. I did this in a place nearby. I'm not gonna tell the name because then you might find the company or the business. You probably could anyway, but I just don't want any shit on them, because they did nothing wrong. I was the person in the situation who was wrong. It's just a situation of my story. I was a person who learned a lot from it and was mistaken in a lot of situations, and school as well. But no one from the company or the business and in any situation was wrong. So this is all my responsibility and the school, like the college's responsibility. So I don't want any shit on them. So it was a 6-month period from the end of November to the end of April, and it was just 3 full-time days a week. So from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. That was around the time. Later it shifted to 3:30 p.m. Because I had a half-hour break, so I stayed for a half an hour longer as well. So that was the basic information you needed to know. And now let's start with my development into this process and why I find it so difficult in the end, and why it was so easy in the beginning. So in the beginning, I was just learning. I just started at a business, like at that company. Let's just call it Apple. I didn't do my internship by Apple, but just let's say Apple because it's easy. Otherwise, you just have to say the company, the business. Just at Apple, I started in the end of November. And everything is new. You need to do those assignments from school, like 2 blocks of 10 weeks. So I had to do 10 weeks for the first assignment and 10 weeks for the second assignment. And if I graduated, I passed those 2 blocks, I graduated from the study. It was a study of 2 years, and I redid the second year, so 3 years for me, because I didn't pass last year. So I just had 2 blocks left. 2 blocks of 10 weeks, or 20 weeks in total, that I had to redo. So in the beginning, you start at a company and you learn everything, and they tell you your the situation, what your tasks are going to be, what you need to do, who works there. You need to shake hands, and you need to introduce yourself to everyone, and everything is nice. You learn a lot, and it's challenging because everything is new and you need to learn everything. And I'm personally quite a guy who needs challenge. That's also why I did do entrepreneurship right now. I need a challenge. I need to be able to develop in a certain situation, and it's not just one thing for a very long time. That's also before this internship, I had a summer job. It was actually 6 months. So just before the summer in last year in April, I started, and at the end of September, I quit. In August. Not in August. At the beginning of November, around that time. So it was around 6 months, and then I became complacent. It became easy, and then I start to slack, and I start to be dissatisfied, and it's just too easy because I don't have a challenge. So that's also why I quit there. And this was just after the summer job, this internship. So I learned a lot, and then after everything became too easy, I became complacent again. That's the biggest the biggest trap I find in myself, in my personality, that when I see something that's challenging and I become good enough at it, that I can do it, that I become complacent, that it's not challenging enough for me, so that I start to slack, that I start to I just don't don't put as much energy into it anymore as I did before, because in my head I'm too good for it. I'm just gonna be really honest with you. In my head I'm too good for it because it's too easy, and that is of course not the ideal situation, because you're just, they hire you for a certain period of time and they pay you for that, so you need to have you need to deliver. Of course, you need to do the right work that they ask you. So in the first month it's really nice, I'm learning a lot, everything is just new, and the first 10 weeks are going by pretty quickly. And in my head I constantly had this thought, like, if I do it quicker than everyone else, like I was in this situation on my own, because all the other students did a different order of the blocks, if that makes sense. You have like this certain 10-week blocks, and everyone has its own order, like the same order for everyone. But because I redid the year and I only had 2 blocks left that I had to do, I had a different order. So I had a personal teacher for myself that did the assignments with me. So I was just on my own. I didn't have a group, didn't have a class, whatever. I was just on my own on this. And the first 10 weeks was quite easy. And in my head, I was just like, okay, if I do it quicker than it has to be, then I'm graduating earlier as well. So with that thought, you are just motivated, constantly motivated, because at the time you graduate, you get your time back. At the time I was already making videos on my Dutch channel, so I already had a different plan, after the internship, after I graduated, I wanted to do entrepreneurship. So I knew what I was doing it for. I was doing it to fulfill my dreams, to do what I really liked, and that's this. So the first 10 weeks were quite easy. It was nice, it was challenging. I was just happy, and the teacher was happy as well. It was just a random teacher. I didn't knew him before, so I was just doing the assignment. It was quite professional, quite masculine. He was also quite professional, quite masculine. We just did it. It just did it how it should be. Just I made the presentation and the report and everything, the document with text and everything, boring. And he just he looked at it and he was like, okay, good, blah blah. You passed. So after those 10 weeks, I had, I think it's just before the 10 weeks, I had a 14 days break for Christmas, but it isn't necessary to know, but it makes sense that when you, at the end of this internship, I didn't have a lot of breaks, it just was constantly going, and then you get frustrated as well. So it's important to know the last break I had was at the end of December for New Year's and Christmas. So I think that was just before my last week of the first block, I think. So then after that, the second block came up, and that's where the trouble started, because the first 10 weeks were quite easy. Everyone was happy. I was doing my work, and it was just going well, And by the way, I'm just constantly switching to Dutch. I don't know why, but I had a study buddy. I just don't know the better name for it. It was the guy in charge of me into the company, in Apple in this case. And he was my age. He was like 24, I believe, 23. And the other guys were all 40 plus or 50 plus years old. So it's just not my age. But this guy who watched through the assignments with me, I told him everything. And he was also on the school meetings online. So he was involved in the situation. His name is Dave. Dave was my study buddy. And every week I sat down with Dave to speak with him about the assignments. So 10 weeks went by, and it is all everyone is happy. It's just okay. I passed the block, and I go on to the next one. The problem is, like, for those 2 blocks, those 2 assignments, you need to get a problem in the company that you're gonna solve, a logistics problem, because you need to pass. You need to show the school, like the college, that you can do something, that you are worthy or graduating. So in the first block, I had a problem with. I'm not gonna say that, but it was a problem that was quite obvious to fix. So I fixed that problem, I put a lot of effort into it, and I passed. In the second block, it was a problem that didn't exist. We made that problem up. So the problem didn't exist. No, it wasn't a problem at all. The problem was already fixed. It was a problem from 2022. So that's quite demotivating, You're not really solving anything. You're just acting like you're solving something for the college, for the school. And the people at the internship are just giving you different tasks that you need to do. So you're just filling your time. You're just they have something. You're just getting paid for a reason, you're doing their tasks instead of just being on your phone. Important to know, by the way, in this first 10 weeks, I constantly laid down my phone on the desk, like on my desk where I was working. I just had 2 monitors, and I laid down my phone on the desk, and I was just watching podcasts like Hamza, Andrew Tate, Iman Gachi, all those, just information, getting information while I was doing something that was boring. So that was quite frustrating for them at the time. I didn't know, but I was doing that. It's also my fault. But I was doing that and my phone was just on, You could see the screen and the podcast was playing on there. Also a lot of Dr. Huberman podcasts, by the way. I also watched a lot of those. So that was what I was doing in the meantime when I was doing the work, So my phone was laying here and I was just working in the meantime. So this way I could get them new knowledge for my YouTube channel, whatever, to provide for you. In the meantime that I'm doing something that I'm not really interested in. So let's go back to the second block. So the second 10 weeks start, and now I have the problem that doesn't exist. So I need to make up this problem, and it doesn't exist. So I'm just acting like it exists. And in the meantime, I'm doing tasks for the internship that are different. It's not, it is not in touch with the certain situation that I'm working on for school. The presentations and the assignments that I'm working on for school are different. So my motivation is gone, because I don't make those assignments for school. In the first 10 weeks, I made those assignments, and the work I put in the business was because I wanted to graduate. So if I didn't do the work for the business, I didn't have an assignment for my school, if that makes sense. You need to show results from the internship. So if I didn't do the actual work, I also didn't have the results for school, so I couldn't graduate. So that was my intrinsic motivation to do this. But in the second block, the second 10 weeks, I didn't have this intrinsic motivation, because the presentations I made for school, for the meetings, I can just make them and just act like I'm doing something good, and it's not really affecting the internship. So that's why my motivation was lower. And in the meantime, when it started, my whole watching podcast thing became bigger. So I was just sitting here, but instead of working, I was just watching the podcast, and sometimes working, but mainly watching the podcast. So those guys were saying this to me, like, can you put down the phone? We don't want you to watch films. And I have this strong argument. It is not films. I'm not watching. I'm just doing work, and I'm listening to the podcast. So I'm doing the work, blah, blah, blah. I think 5 weeks or 6 weeks passed, and I was just constantly thinking about the fact that I could do entrepreneurship, and could do YouTube, and could prepare the courses I wanted to put on my school community. But in the meantime, I had to go up at 6 a.m. and go to the internship at 7 a.m. and do the boring work that I didn't want to do. And that's mentally quite tough, because you hold yourself back basically from doing something that you really want to do. But you have a reason to do it, so you continue, and people rely on you, but you don't really want to. So it's difficult, So after 5 weeks of just doing their work, really boring work, it's just really depressing. They once placed me in this room. It's just really depressing to sit in this location and do some work. So you can imagine if you are constantly doing something you don't like, then the podcast and just listening to someone you affect with, like you like what they say and you're interested in what they say, then the work is quite okay. But after like 5 weeks, they're like, put the phone away. What the fuck? Why are you doing this? We don't like that you're doing this. We want you to do some actual work. So I became quite frustrated, quite irritated. And the day after, I walked to the guy in charge, like the biggest guy in charge that was in charge over me, not the study buddy, like not Dave, but like a guy above Dave, like the guy in charge over the whole situation. So I walked into his office and I told him, like, can I not just go home and act like I'm doing the work for school, and then you're just not paying me anymore? I'm just at home acting like I'm doing the work. And for the 2 school presentations I need to do, Dave just flies in on Teams and he's just acting like I was there, and we're just all happy, you know, because they were frustrated that I was there just watching podcast, and I was frustrated that I was there because I didn't have any motivation to do the boring work that I didn't like to do. So this was at like 5 a.m. because I had a new motivation to wake up at 4:30 a.m. and just start at 5 a.m. or it was 5:30 a.m. Because then I could go home earlier, of course, and I could work on my YouTube channel more after the internship. That's why I woke up earlier. So this was in the middle of the night that I had this conversation, and he was like, "Let me think about this," like the guy in charge. And after that, he just said like, okay, let me think about it. That might be possible. So after that, he came back to me, and I was like, oh, please, can I just go home? I don't like this. I want to work on my YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. And he came to me and he was like, no, we're not going to do this. And if you're not like watching out, we are going to kick you out, and you need to choose, like, you need to find a new place. And I was like, oh, I really didn't expect him to say this, because he just walked away saying, oh, maybe that is maybe possible, I'm just going to think about it. And then he comes back like 45 minutes later, and he's like, no, and you need to watch out, you need to do the work right now, because otherwise we're going to kick you out. I just don't like to be played with. That's what he said. So I was like, okay, in this time I was already consuming all this self-improvement content and acting like a masculine man, because although I wasn't, but I was already in this space, you know, so I wasn't a nobody. I was already going to the gym, creating videos in the time, already from the start of the internship. So I was already aware of taking responsibility and everything. And at that time I was like, oh fuck, maybe this is the real situation, that I need to take responsibility and level up my game. So I did. A really nice conversation with Dave, like my study buddy, the guy in charge in the department. So that's a different guy, but he was just working there as just a co-worker. But he was in charge of me at the department. Dave was not at my department. And the guy in charge, he was there as well. So it was quite a toxic situation, because I wanted to go. They didn't like me there because I was just not performing. And I was constantly watching podcasts. I was frustrated, they were frustrated, and we needed to talk to make those last 4 weeks, a good and happy and a good ending, you know. So it was quite harsh for me. Basically, I took a lot of responsibility in the situation. I said like, okay, I'm gonna put away the phone, and he also said, I don't want to see the phone ever again. So okay, no podcast. I was just listening to the podcast now instead of also watching it. So for me, it wasn't a difference. But he really thought that I was watching films. So all the guys it is a big business, you know. So all these people are around me, and they're all thinking that I'm watching films. So I can imagine that if you think that I'm watching films, that is quite frustrating. If you are working there, you're 9 to 5, and there's just this internee watching films. But I didn't. I was watching podcasts. But in fairness, I was probably watching too much to my phone instead of actually working. So my responsibility. But they thought I was watching films. That was why they were frustrated. So after this conversation, they were like really harsh, and he was like, I really want to kick you out, but I just find it quite a bit sad because you're almost done. So just don't give me a reason to kick you out. And if you really start performing right now, we can keep you. So now the last 4 weeks begin. And I really need to step up my game, otherwise this guy's going to kick me out, and I need to find a new place, which is going to take a lot of time, which is going to be annoying for school as well, because they are like, why did you quit this place, or why did you find a new place, and you need to find a new study buddy, like a new Dave, and it's just a lot of chaos. I don't want that. So I went back with a new mentality. I switched mentality. I just locked in the masculine mode, like take responsibility. This is my chance to show myself that I have discipline, that I really can do things that I don't want to do. But in the meantime, I was just working from 7 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. on the internship 3 days a week. And in the time left, I was constantly working on YouTube, editing the videos by myself. At the time, now I have an editor, ISC. But in the time I was editing everything myself, making the thumbnails myself, scripting myself, everything. I did everything myself. So it consumes a lot of time. So when you're finally done, like Sunday evening, then Monday you're already going to the internship again, and you're just a bit exhausted because the last break, this was like mid-April or like the beginning of April. No, it was the end of March. Bro, it was the end of March. So the last break was with Christmas, so I'm also a little bit tired, because I worked a lot on the gym, on the business, and in the internship. So now the last 4 weeks begin, new mentality, and I really need to show myself that I have discipline and that I can finish this in a good way, because otherwise I need to find a new place, and it's gonna be a lot of chaos, and it's just fucked up, So now the next the next part of the internship, new me. And you might think, okay, now comes the part that that everyone is mad at each other and that there's gonna break out a really big fight. No, I took responsibility. I started my caffeine addiction because I found out that if I took coffee, if I took caffeine, that I felt amazing. So I just started to take caffeine, started to take drugs. In my opinion, caffeine is just drugs, because now it's like Tuesday, exactly a week after I had my last day at the internship, and now finally my headaches are a bit lowering down, a bit less headaches. But all the days after I quit caffeine, like last Saturday, so that's like almost 6 days now, I cold turkey quit caffeine, but man, I had so much headache, so I will not recommend anyone drinking 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day. But I did this because I wanted to feel good, because it just was quite annoying doing this, against your will, because you feel like I want to work on my business, but I can't because I'm here, and I need to do this because if I quit, I have this 10,000 euro study debt. I don't want this. So I need to finish it in a good way. And I knew it was like exactly a month before I had to graduate, so it was like the 25th of March, and I had to do 4 weeks, a month, quite a big month, which is not really nice to know if you think, oh, I really want to be done, and then you really need to do another month, the last month. But here comes a nice moment, because this was the time that I created this countdown. You can see this. You can also watch back on my channel and see in which videos the countdown wasn't there and where it started. So that was the moment when like this conversation happened with Dave and the guy in charge of me in the department and the guy in charge in the whole business. So then after this conversation, I made this countdown because it's more motivating to count down your last days. So those are all days that I had to go to my internship. So now I can finally cross out I'm gonna wait with this. I'm gonna wait with this. No, I'm gonna wait with this for literally the last day. But it's close. This video is almost to an end. So I really need to switch. I really had to switch in mentality. I really had to switch in everything in my behavior. The phone went away. I still had my AirPods in, like one AirPod, listening to podcasts, listening to everything, music, everything. But I started performing as well. So they were happy. They saw me doing a lot of things, a lot of extra things that I didn't do before, because I was just complacent, I just find it too easy. I wasn't motivating, and the assignments with school were also quite easy. There's just another thing that's important to mention as well. After the first 3 weeks or something, the first 3 weeks of this new blog, so the first 3 weeks from this new blog that I didn't really had an assignment, that I was just acting. After those first 2 weeks, I think, after 2 or 3 weeks, the teacher, my personal teacher, just went on vacation. He just took vacation for 3 weeks, and I just went to like the big teacher, the teacher in charge, whatever. I don't know his name in English. The teacher in charge. And I sent him an email like, what the fuck, I don't have someone to do my assignments with. I don't want to wait 3 weeks because I still have to be at the internship in those 3 weeks. And I don't have a school assignment, so it will just take 3 weeks extra to graduate. The first teacher of the first block, the first 10 weeks, was a teacher that I really liked. I really didn't have anything with him. He was just a nice guy, an old guy. And because he was old, he was retiring. After my last meeting with him, my last meeting in those 10 weeks, he retired at the end of February, I believe. So after that, I had for my new block a different teacher. And this teacher was the teacher that didn't let me pass last year on my internship before the internship that I fumbled, because I was really not doing anything in particular that was good for the business. I was just fucking around and blaming everyone else, not masculine. But I didn't, I don't want to talk about it. There was just a bad situation. I didn't do anything well in that situation. But because I fumbled it there, I had to do this again. So this is why this whole video exists, because I had to do it again. And last year, when I had like the last meeting for that internship, I managed to pass on 9 checkpoints, and the 10th checkpoint, like the 10th week, I had this end presentation with this guy and the guy from the business at the time, the past internship, the internship last year. And that teacher didn't let me pass, but we all found it like it was bullshit, and like my classmates, like my study mates, they all thought it was bullshit because I had just a good report and it was just all fine, but he just didn't like me, and that's why he didn't let me pass. So I had quite a bit of a bias against this guy, because of this guy I had to do a new internship in the new year and 20 whole weeks again. So of course now I take responsibility for that, but in the time I was just a feminine loser and I was just not taking responsibility, and I just blamed him for everything. But now the second block of this internship comes on, and I have to do it again with this teacher that last year let me fail because he thought that I wasn't good enough. So I was just quite a bit biased. I really didn't like him, but we started anyway. So after 2 weeks, he just randomly says, "Oh, after this I have a 3-week vacation, so I don't know what you're gonna do, but I'm gone. I'm flying out and I'm gone." So I was like, I don't want to graduate 3 weeks later, so I want a new teacher for this certain period of time. So I emailed the guy above, and after 2 weeks, he didn't do it instantly. After 2 weeks, he himself, the big teacher, like in charge, he came to me and we did a meeting. I did a meeting with him. So anyway, 2 weeks extra of internship, just a bit more frustration on top. So that was just something that you had to know. That's also why I was a bit frustrated, because that teacher just randomly went on vacation and the other teacher was retired, so I couldn't go to him. So I just had no one, and after 2 weeks, finally the guy comes to me and we had a meeting. But it was just 2 weeks extra of internship that I already didn't like. So now, after the conversation that I talked about earlier, the big conversation with Dave and the guy in charge of me at the department and the guy in charge, I switched my mentality. I took responsibility for everything, but I knew it was going to be hard with my new caffeine addiction as well. I was really aware of it, that it was bad, but I also knew that it was going to be easier when I took the caffeine. So now I'm up for the last 4 checkpoints, I believe. And I'm going to put a lot of effort into this because, it's really important for me to graduate. And I don't want to put another extra week in, like if I fail and I need to do it again and I need to redo the presentation. So I really need to pass in one time. So I'm putting effort in. Everything is happy. Everyone is happy. And I'm actually doing good things at the internship again. Like in the beginning when I was learning, I was also putting great work the first 10 weeks. But now I'm back at that guy, I'm back at that identity. I'm finally taking responsibility and doing the work. So now everyone is happy again. And everything just goes fine with my new caffeine addiction. And the time flies by. And I recorded some videos on the second channel as well about this. It just wasn't fun anyway. But I had a new motivation because otherwise I had to find a new internship. So I just did it. And then the big moment came up. I sat down with Dave, my study buddy, to watch the presentation before he went on the Teams with me and the teacher. Like the last presentation was with me, Dave, and the teacher, and I really need to present the results of the assignment. So Dave needs to know what I'm doing at school, even though he's just working at the business and he's not really involved in anything. But we built up a nice connection. And because he's also an entrepreneur and he also wants to quit that job when he makes enough with his business. But yeah, that's also why we had a nice connection. And he was also an Ajax fan like I am. I live in the Netherlands, of course. And we are both Ajax fans. So we was just sitting down every week for 1 hour, just talking about entrepreneurship, football and everything. And a little bit about school. But this is just a side note. Now the last moment, the last day before the big presentation comes up, and I really need to prepare and I really need to show them everything and really put a lot of effort in, because I really want to do it. And it's just so stupid, I make those presentations with made up results, and I just show it to the teacher and he's like, This is the same teacher that let me fail last year, and he's just like, okay, and why is this and why is this, and we're just sitting here in this Teams call and just acting like it's important. And I can now watch through this, I can see that this is really stupid and that this is not valuable at all, but he's just still thinking that it's really important and that I really need to pass, because then I can go into the big world and I can have a job, a 9 to 5, and become a logistics planner or whatever. But I'm in my head thinking, oh, please can I go, because I really want to remove the study debt and just live on with my life. So the last meeting with my study buddy, and then the day after with my teacher. The teacher in the meeting itself, the teacher calls another teacher in, because it's just an exam, because after this meeting I'm graduated if I do it right, and he just doesn't want to be the only person who sees it and has to judge. So he calls on the other teacher, the big teacher in charge, who also had that one meeting when the guy was on vacation. I didn't blame him, but it was just school's fault that I didn't have an extra teacher for me to just do the assignments, because I have weekly assignments for school, and I couldn't resume that, like I couldn't go on with that because that guy was on vacation, so I couldn't call him, and I didn't have another teacher because everyone was busy, sorry. Yeah, it was quite stupid. So last meeting, really nervous, sitting here with my light behind. I was really professional, doing everything with my ring light as well, and the big moment, I present my presentation and tell everything about the results that I got. I made up indeed. And at the end, he just says, okay, it was better than I expected, blah, blah, blah. And the study buddy, so Dave, also tells everyone, like the two teachers and me, what he found, like what his opinion was. And then they just leave. After this conversation, he also tells me, like, do you have some self-reflection? Like, do you find something that you did wrong? And I honestly told him, like, in the beginning, I was complacent and I was not taking it seriously. But after this big conversation with Dave and the guy in charge and the bigger guy in charge, I took it seriously. So I think I managed to do it in a good way. I managed to end it in a good way. So he was okay with that. He didn't know that I had a lot of self-reflection because of my YouTube channel and everyone telling what they found of my videos. And you really need to build up a lot of confidence in the meantime, because otherwise you'll just, I don't know, lose all your confidence and just go cry in a corner or something. But they didn't know that I had such good self-reflection. So he was a bit overwhelmed that I had such a good self-reflection. But after this part of talking, they just left. And I was expecting that they told me that I was graduated or not. I told everyone that I was hanging around with and going to the gym with that there was a big moment that I had to graduate, and they just left. They didn't tell me. So I was sending them an email like, bro, am I graduated or not? What the fuck? I don't know. I want to tell my mom, I want to tell my brother, I want to tell everyone if I graduated or not. And he told me that it was better than expected. So I thought that I was graduated. So after some emails back and forth, he tells me, you got a 7.5 and you are graduated. So now the last day on the internship is left. This was on a Wednesday. Every meeting was on a Wednesday. The internship days were on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So the school meeting was always on Wednesday. So now I have 1 day of internship left when I'm already graduated. So I brought cake and everyone was congratulate. What's a nice English word for that? Anyway, they were just telling me that they were happy, blah, blah, blah. They were shaking hands. And I was finally done with the internship. I said goodbye to everyone. And I went home and it was just over finally. And I could focus on entrepreneurship. So I can now finally cross the last countdown because the internship is over. Like, it's now a week later. But I just wanted to wait for it with this video. And it's done. The internship is done. I'm graduated. Everyone is happy. They are happy with my work that I put in the end, and in the first 10 weeks as well, because the first 10 weeks were just nice. The last 10 weeks were quite hectic and quite mentally tough. I heard Charlie Morgan talk about this in some of his videos. He did like an internship, but in a company. I don't know the word anymore. But he also had like a forced period that he has to stay. And he did a lot of cold calls because in the time he was cold calling for gym memberships or something. And he told the camera, like me in that situation in the video, that he didn't mind in that situation to just lose control over his car and crash and die, because he found it so terrible to be in that situation. And because I already heard his story about his situation, and now I was in the same situation, I was also thinking like, this is so terrible, so if something terrible happens, I'm okay with it, but because at least I'm done with this terrible situation. But of course that's really dramatic, and I'm now happy that I'm alive and that I'm here. But now you can imagine how tough it is to get up like 3 times a week. You need to get up at 6 a.m. Anyway, I was just waking up at 6 a.m. and in the end 4:30 a.m. Just waking up, knowing that you're gonna get 8.5 hours of work that you don't like, and even with a guy like the guy in my department, like in the company, like in Apple, the guy in charge of me at the department, who was just a co-worker, but he was just in charge over me. He was constantly keeping me accountable for everything, but in a really harsh way. You know, he was really tough, harsh guy. He was not really tough because he was fat and ugly, but he was harsh. I don't mind saying, I don't mean to say negative things, but it's just really honest. He was constantly eating candy and smoking cigarettes. So yeah, it was just an NPC, but he was really keeping me accountable and really harsh on me. So you can imagine how tough it is if you're not motivated and this guy's constantly yelling at you that you're not doing it right, which I wasn't. So he was completely right in this situation. He was completely right in every situation, but I was just annoyed and I was irritated and frustrated. So it's not a nice situation, as you can imagine. So the last day with him was already on the day that I vlogged as well. I made a vlog about my second last day of my internship. As you can watch on my channel, just the second last video before this video. It is called A Day in the Life of a 6'7" tall guy. That was the second last day of my internship, and that's also the day I said goodbye to him, because he was on vacation on Thursday, my last day. So it was quite difficult. It was a weird moment because we both knew that we were not like compatible, and he was really angry at me sometimes, and I was angry at him sometimes as well, because I thought I was right and he thought he was right. So it was a funny situation, but after all we just shake the hands and we went, and he went home, I went home. It was all right. But I learned a lot from this situation. I learned discipline, I learned leadership as well, because all this situation you really need to become a boss on your own, like a CEO of the situation, if that's the right word, because it's not nothing. 6 months of labor against your will. Like the first 10 weeks were quite okay, the first 3 months, but it's still not nice because you're already making videos and it's going well. So you want to leave that and you want to go to the things you really like, but still you need to, because otherwise you have this big study debt, and you don't want study debt because I don't want to pay back 10,000 euros to the government. So now I'm done. Everyone is happy. I learned a lot, and that's also why I spoke so much about it on this channel, because in the meantime I was just doing this 3 full-time days a week. It was really tough, and I'm so grateful that this happened, because I am the person today. I'm the person today that I am today because of what happened. I was probably a bigger pussy and a bigger loser if this didn't happen. So I'm happy that this happened in this way, even though I really didn't like it. It was just boring, and you don't want to do boring things, of course. So I learned a lot. It's done now. I crossed the last countdown point on my countdown, and I'm done. I'm free to go and stand and go where I want to, and I'm just committing fully to my internship, to my business, to my YouTube channel, to help you, to provide you from content, from knowledge. But now you know, if you watch to this point, almost probably 40 minutes in or 35 minutes in, you know a lot about me, you know a lot about my past 6 months and how tough it was, and what I learned in this situation, of course, because you learn a lot. That's also why I made a video on the second channel, like what I learned from having a 9 to 5 or something like that. It's just different. It's just really different than when you just learn it from videos or from books or whatever. I also saw Hamza saying this in one of his videos, that he said like everyone should actually have one day or 1 week in a 9 to 5 to just feel how it is, or work an overnight shift against your will and still do it, because this builds so much discipline, and now you also know what you don't want instead of what you want, because you have seen the other side. I can be so dissatisfied with the situation that I'm gonna do everything to make this succeed, because I know if I don't let this succeed, I still need to pay my bills, I still need to do something, so I need to go back to a 9 to 5 and experience this all over again. Of course, then I don't have the school assignments and I just work a 9 to 5, but that's just more demotivating, because you're just constantly doing the same thing. And as I told at the beginning, I need a challenge, I need to be challenged, and this is totally not challenging if you're constantly doing the same thing. So because of this, I'm so dissatisfied with the situation that I'm going to do everything to make this succeed, to provide as much value to you, that I can eventually make a living off of it and just make ends meet, because I don't want the other side anymore. And I'm 21, so if I will take a 9 to 5, I probably need to work over 40 years against my will, and that's not something you want to do. So that's my story. That's my internship story. Now you know what happened, why it happened, how it happened, and what was my motivation and what wasn't my motivation. I think I didn't tell you everything, because after I graduated, I went on a nice dinner. As you can see here, a picture with my brother. It was quite nice. I just drank alcohol for the first time in like 6 months or something. Yeah, Christmas. It was the last time with Christmas, so around 5 months. It was nice, nice time. Just eating a lot of trash and drinking some alcohol and just celebrating, basically. I'm not different than you are, I just also do those things, but I do those things because I achieved something. I'm celebrating and then I do those things. I'm just not sitting here at my desk eating chocolate the whole day, That would be stupid. Then I will not be able to function, and then you will not believe me, because I will be really ugly with pimples and bad skin, and I won't be muscular, so that's not a good idea. So now you know what my motivation is, what happened, and when I do celebrate, what I do when I celebrate. I just drink some beers, I just had a nice time, and yeah, that's the situation that you can choose yourself. And like, now it's time to celebrate, now it's time to let loose a little bit, let it go, your standards and everything, for like 2 days or something, and then you can go back on the grind. Then you can go back to the gym and pick up your diet, because now you have a valid reason to celebrate. And once you're done celebrating, you feel so terrible that you're probably wanting to go back to your normal schedule, because you feel a lot better on that diet and that gym pattern and everything, your daily routine. So thanks for listening. If you think this guy is really interesting, I need help with my diet or with my sleep or with motivation for my internship, you can click on the first link in the description. There's a coaching call link right there. It's just a free link that you can book to book a meeting. It's a free meeting that you can book to look if we fit together. Maybe there's a nice future in that when we can work together. And if you want to follow my progress on everything on this channel as an entrepreneur and my daily lessons and everything, you can subscribe to this channel and leave a comment if you have something to say, if you want to add something, and leave a like if you thought this video was entertaining and valuable. Thanks for listening, and remember, get back to work and make your future self proud.